All right. Well, welcome to the first episode of But Wait, There's More. My name's Hans. This is my fellow storyteller and color commentator, Ray.
Hello.
We're here at Silver Wolf Comics and Games, and we just wanted to share with you some of the D&D adventures that we have here on a regular basis. Now, for those that are uninitiated, Ray's going to explain what D&D is.
Oh, he hands it off that quickly. Clever guy. For the uninitiated, now, there's been a lot of people that have had a lot of bad things to say about Dungeons and Dragons, that it's evil, it's devil worship, there are spells to raise demons, etc., ad nauseum. Not the thing. What you're looking at is a game that is considered team problem solving. You have a number of people, they are the players. Then you have one person who is going to run the game. That's the game master. Usually the frightening person behind the screen at the end of the table. The game master's job is to play everybody else that is not a player. He plays the tavern keeps, he plays the captain of the guard, he plays the villains, local wildlife, he plays the weather. It's the kind of thing where anything you have to interact with that is not another actual person, he's going to take care of. So, needless to say, annoying the man is never really a good idea.
You'll find out what happens later when that happens. He's got a very good description of me and my natural environment as a game master.
Well, anyway, a series of people, men, women, children, it doesn't really matter. Anyone can play if they have any kind of an imagination. They'll pick a character to play. Maybe you want to be the hero, or you like the idea of being the dashing rogue or the sneaky pickpocket. There's anywhere in the spectrum you can play. If you don't like the idea of playing as a human being, you could be someone else. Elves, dwarves, variations on a theme, on a whole kaleidoscope of different races that you could actually be, just for the sake of different flavor, different attributes. Maybe you just want to be somebody else for a change. It's just an exercise in imagination.
And it's about team problem solving. So me as the game master will present a problem, whether it's a combat problem or a puzzle or a diplomatic problem, and you as the team of players go about solving that problem using your various skills that your race and or class provides. And so that brings us into the stories that we're going to be telling. It's what happens to these groups of this particular group of players as they go through the D&D module, Horde of the Dragon Queen. As a DM, I highly recommend this. It was very easy to use. 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons is a lot simpler than some of the previous editions, but at the same time it has a lot of depth as far as characters and backstory. And for this adventure module, it was very easy to use as a DM. It provided everything you needed, and you didn't have to put in too much extra work to get what you needed out of the book. So to start off, we're going to set the scene as far as what our players are doing and the characters that they're going to be playing. Horde of the Dragon Queen, you are trying to find out and ultimately stop this group of cultists who are planning to resurrect or summon Tiamat, the Queen of Dragons, from the Nine Hells where she's been imprisoned. And there's a cult running around trying to enact this by raiding villages and gather enough gold so that when she comes into the world, she'll be appeased, I guess it were. And that's where we're at right now. It's in the Sword Coast of Faerun, which is probably the most prevalent D&D setting out there. And as far as characters are concerned, we've got Fergus, who is a dwarf fighter played by Ray. He's from Mithril Hall, which is another big setting. And unlike a lot of characters in D&D, Fergus is actually doesn't have a tragic backstory. He's happily married to a drow, which is a story.
There's a story.
Yeah, there's a story in and of itself from Waterdeep, and so he plays the tank of the group. His job is to take damage and to keep the squishier players like the mages and the rogues from getting hit and taking damage.
Yes. Rule of thumb: run out front, get hit. That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. So for all you tanks out there, or any player that's going to play a fighter or a tanky character, if you're taking a lot of damage, that's your job. It's okay. You might get knocked down, but you'll get up again, as long as you have a good cleric or druid, somebody who can heal you. Next up is Ito. He's an elf wizard, and his is a little bit more tragic. He kind of got lost at sea, and then was found and adopted by a harper who is also a pirate hunter out in that part of the world, in the Sword Coast area. He eventually has to leave home and leave his adopted father and go find the Harpers because of a pirate attack. Mm-hmm. Now, Ito is played by Steve, who is a good friend of Ray's.
Steve, it's something that you'll see in a lot of adventuring groups, especially. We have a very large group. A comfortable group for one person to run is maybe 4, on the outside maybe 5. We have 10. It's a little unwieldy, but it's the kind of thing, when you start getting into the bigger groups like that, you'll see 2 or 3. Usually it's one friend will start playing and then he'll bring in a couple of more. And of course, once you've got a group of cronies running together, especially if they've gamed together before, there's a synergy there amongst them. And it helps, or it can hinder. If you're set up to a certain fighting style, tank goes up the middle, mage fades back over here to the left somewhere, invisible and dispersed, and then the monk comes over here on the right and he helps the tank do all the damage, and etc. and so on. Alright, that's fine, but the rest of the group may trip all over that because they're not used to working with these guys. So it can be a double-edged sword. And another problem is if you've got cronies that know all their own inside jokes, there is a certain level of grab ass involved that can, it can be humorous, it can also slow the game down.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's all about having fun. This is a game, and we're here to have fun. And eventually, as a DM, I've learned about a lot of the inside jokes and stumbled into quite a few of them unintentionally.
Face first.
Oh yeah, it was a beautiful thing. And that's okay. For all you DMs out there, some are more hardcore than others, but I'm all about having fun. And so if my players have an inside joke that gets told, great, they're having fun, people are laughing, having a good time, and that's great. And so that's Ito/Steve. He's one of the 4 old farts of Faerun.
We're having the t-shirts made, honest.
and so he's our elf wizard. Next up is Caliban, another of the 4 old farts. Caliban is played by Glenn. Glenn's a very pun-filled man.
Yes, if ever there was a villain in any superhero comic where if they needed a villain called the Punner, it would be him in a cape, because he's one of those guys. He's very good with a turn of a phrase, and he'll give you some of these just a standard simple comment that 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the dime drops and you realize he just nailed you with an incredibly bad pun. Well, and you're wondering why he's over there giggling in the corner, because I got you again. And yeah, fun guy. He has his moments. Now, his character,
Caliban, is a tiefling monk.
Yes, he, I guess we could say, is the Kwai Chang Kane of the group. He also has a
Fists of Fury.
Yeah, the Flying Fists of Fury of Farron. We've actually gotten that whole line up to about 8 Fs, I think, because
Yeah.
it just keeps going every time
Yeah.
one of us looks at it. Oh, let's see how to explain him.
He's a quiet sort
He's
most of the time, but he enjoys a good romp in the bedroom.
that's yes.
We'll keep it PG like
Yeah,
that.
we're gonna keep it clean. Let's just say that he has he's got a record so far.
A very impressive
A very
record.
impressive record.
You'll find out about it.
He's one of those guys. It's like that one guy that's always great with the ladies. There he goes.
Mm.
And well, it's a beautiful thing. Maybe we should call it "It's a Beautiful Thing."
Well. Anyway, next up is Mac, played by Terry, the fourth of the four old farts of Faerun. He is a dragonborn rogue, and he was adopted and raised by dwarfs. So imagine, if you will, a 6 foot something reptilian humanoid raised by dwarves who get at most maybe 4 foot something.
4'5" is a tall dwarf.
Right. So
You know he was probably spending his entire early life ducking chandeliers, door frames, ceilings,
well, he had to
beer
dust
mugs.
the ceilings.
Well, yeah, he was probably in charge of that too. Speaking with him, he is a dwarf. It's a dwarf in a big rubber lizard suit, for lack of a better explanation.
Yeah.
He does have a tendency to be stealthy.
Stealthy.
Stealthy, yeah. Well, it's stealthy as a code word. Let's put it that way. There's a certain amount of stealth, and then once you take that level of stealth and you add it to a certain amount of wine or some other pungent liqueur of choice,
Well,
and it becomes stealthy. The funny part is he can pick locks and be sneaky and all, hammered out of his mind. So we must be doing something right.
Must be. Must be. Next up, Mariel. She is one half of a mother-son team. Mariel is played by Jackie. Mariel is a half-elf rogue who is searching for a mysterious tablet that might hold an answer to her brother's disappearance. Her character... now, we have a lot of rogues, but this particular rogue is more of an assassin-type rogue, really focused more on the damage, whereas the other two are more about trickery and stealth and sneaking around. Hers, she just wants to blow somebody up. In particular, she likes leaving her signature whenever she does something amazing in combat. She'll carve M's into her victims with her rapier.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
It's still a game, though.
Yes, it's still a game. It's a very cathartic game for some people. But
I think it's actually the resonance of her satisfaction in the sword blade that actually makes the M sound.
Probably.
It's a possibility, anyway.
Some kobold clans are fear the mighty mm.
The mighty I don't think we're ever going to get around that one.
No. Now going to the other half of the mother-son team is Jareth, played by Matt. He's a good kid. He's learning. Both him and his mom are kind of new to D&D. He's learning, and he's young, and it kind of gets him in trouble. Yeah. It makes for interesting times. You're going to hear a lot about Matt. But, it's one of those where, as a DM, I want to encourage people in their creativity, and he's certainly creative. But at the same time, I'm also the villain, and so I have to punish mistakes. So, you're going to see what happens to Jareth and Matt as we go through this story. He's a dragonborn fighter, and he was not aware that tanking is about taking damage and making sure everybody else is safe. So there is some growing pains with this particular character.
Yeah, probably between here and here. Yep.
So it'll be fun. You'll see. Next up is Turin, played by Ricky. Ricky is a good friend of mine. I've known him for a long, long time and have DM'd for him several times in the past. He's playing a Wood Elf Ranger. He loves his range characters. Yes.
Cape blowing in the breeze.
Yes, just very
What
stoic and
what a guy.
heroic. And Ranger Rick, as we fondly call him, will inevitably find somebody to get in an archer's duel with.
Yes, you could be in the middle of a bar brawl. Beer mugs, people, halflings flying through the air. Chairs, tables, and there's these two clowns on opposite sides of the room through the middle of the melee, having this duel with each other, shooting. I mean, you're sitting there in the middle of a fight, you're trying to fight this guy, you're trying to fight this guy, and this guy, because the dwarf is short, he's shooting over the dwarf's head at this other guy, and the other guy is shooting over my head back. The problem is I know that he's going to miss me, we hope. I know that this guy doesn't care if he hits me, so he's drawing unwanted attention to the dwarf. So needless to say, it's one of those things where it's just like, will you knock it off? Go bother somebody else with it. Go fight over there. Go there, please, anywhere. No, they got to have their signature. You know, and it's just arrows. When everything's done and said, you put the fires out and you move the bodies outside into the snow, you got arrows drawn. It's like little cutouts in the wall with arrows everywhere. And with stuff's broken, the horses won't come inside because there's arrows on every wall. It's just not right.
And Turin's backstory is that his clan was lost to a chromatic dragon attack. There's two different kinds of dragons. Well, there's many kinds of dragons, but there's two main types. There's chromatic, which is your basic colors like green, black, red, white, blue. And then there's metallic. Now, the difference between the two is chromatic is evil, metallic is good. So if you run into a dragon, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad, but you still have to be careful. You run into a chromatic one, you either run for the hills or you make sure you have a lot of friends ready to kill it. The metallic ones, as long as you're nice and respectful,
they may just be indifferent to you.
They may be indifferent or they may help you out. Well, his clan was wiped out by a bunch of chromatic dragons, and so now his character...
It was a group of them. Oh.
Well, that's why he hates all of them. And so now he's all about... His character learned all about hunting and dragons, and so that's what Turin's all about. Next up is Rithian, played by Casey.
Healer.
She's our healer, one of our two healers. She plays an elf cleric. Who is a cleric of Lathander, who is probably the main healing or life type.
Very sparkly, everything's wrapped in chiffon. It's so beautiful.
Right. And her character grew up, got healed at a temple of Lathander, and so she dedicated her life to serving this particular deity. She's fun because sometimes she misspeaks. She tries, to make some interesting jokes, and sometimes she gets you. It's really good.
Yes, there are so many quotes by so many various wise people, and she almost always gets them right.
Almost always gets them right. And it's caused some, at least once, a very humorous interaction. Again, the preview, you'll find out about it later. It's a good time.
Moving along.
Next up is Krontis. He's a tiefling rogue.
Gotta watch that guy.
He's sneaky. He is the odd one of the bunch because he is the only evil character.
Well,
Well, his alignment. He's the only one that's either true neutral or, like neutral evil. And so
I would say he's just got a enlightened self-interest.
Okay, there you go. I mean, he hasn't messed over the group, but every now and then he does something shady that you're just like,
I'm watching you.
And he's played by James, who is also very new to D&D. So his backstory is not quite filled out as some of the other ones, and he's having a learning experience, which is really good. It's always good to have new players, and
you definitely do get us with new players. Sometimes they're like, I'm going to do this, and all the old hands are, why didn't we think of that?
Yeah.
It's always good to bring in fresh brain matter to be able to look at it from a different perspective. I didn't really think in that first bar fight to get on top of the bar, so I'd be the same height as everybody else. Where's he? He's over there. Why am I over here? I'm getting killed over here.
Yeah. So, and with him is his significant other, Ailey, who is played by Jean, and she plays a wood elf druid. Again, very new to D&D, so the backstory isn't really filled out. However, she's learning how to be a caster type, and kind of she's our other healer of the group, keeping people alive, and every now and then coming in with some really good jokes and one-liners.
And risking her life every other minute.
That is something to be said for Ailey, is she will run into a situation to try and heal somebody up. I mean, she tries to stay alive, but she has entered some pretty risky situations to
big fur ball of a fight, and where is she going? You're running in amongst everybody. Heal, and then run the hell back out again. It's like, and she made it. All right, good. Get back over there where it's safe.
Took some bravado. Now, our last character, this is the 11th of the 10, because he unfortunately, fortunately for him, because he got a job at a nice place, had to move away. And this is Ivor of Ours. And not really a whole lot of backstory because he moved away kind of soon.
Didn't really have the time to develop the character.
Right. But he was special, and we had a special moment with him. That character.
Special.
He was a sword-throwing fighter. Now, normally fighters don't go around throwing weapons, but he really wanted to do this. So I found a way to make it happen.
He spent with a forgiving game master. Well, and I wouldn't say forgiving, but if the game master's willing to work with you, accommodating. If the guy's willing to work with you, you can bend the rules just a little bit, or just shade things in more to your
liking.
Thank you. I don't know what it is with the words today, folks. But his deal was throwing swords. He spent the time and the money to have a
full
seven of them?
Yeah, a set of 7.
He had a set of perfectly balanced throwing swords. Long swords. So long. I mean, you throw. It's like any rogue can throw a knife. I mean, you whip a knife out, zing, nail some guy to the wall, stick his wrist to the wall. Nail a cloak to the floor, hit their foot, nail it to the floor. Him, no, he's throwing a 4-pound broadsword the length of the room. And he always wanted to time it so that the point and the hilt swing over the dwarf. Again, the dwarf is the focal point of a lot of the crap flying through the air.
Oh, and Ray's not joking here. People would say, I'm throwing over the dwarf, because the dwarf has this marvelous helmet with horns.
It keeps my brains in.
And so everybody wanted to pile in behind the dwarf and throw things and shoot things between those horns. And it's just a picture, if you will, just all kinds of projectiles going over this poor dwarf's head as he's trying to keep numerous bad guys at bay.
Over there. They're over there. These people are behind me. Now, again, we have a wandering tank who has a tendency to be somewhere else than where he needs to be. So I'm here, and the bad guys are there, probably in a semicircle or in two groups, because they never all come at you in a neat little wedge. So I've got this many here. Here I am. Come and get me, you buggers. Ha ha! And then notice, if you take a quick look over your shoulder, the whole party is behind me.
Because the other tank is
Where's
kind
the
of
other
wandering.
tank? He's over there some bloody where. Get over here!
So that's the party. And now we're going to get into kind of the beginning of Horde of the Dragon Queen. So spoiler alert.
Step 1.
The party comes together through various means. They're either guards in a caravan or they're wandering looking for something. Either way, we get the party together and they come upon, and it's very important that you come upon the villains and not vice versa, a small town in the southern part of the Sword Coast called Greenest.
And it is. It's a lovely little place.
Except for the fact that it's under attack by cultists.
Great, nasty people.
And a blue dragon.
Yes. It doesn't have to be. Some people can just whip together a quick little adventure. Thumbnail. They have a small group of people that just, hey, let's play. And the game master may do something simple like you all meet in a tavern or the local hiring hall. Those are usually the go-to ways to get a group together. In this particular instance, we're all caravan guards for one reason or another. We're either traveling from point A to point B in the caravan, or we're actually being paid to guard the thing. And now, okay, it's been a long ride, and come over the rise, and there's smoke. Okay, smoke. That's not a cook fire smoke, that's a building on fire smoke. And then, oh look, a dragon. Now dragons, hence the name of the game, Dungeons and Dragons. Dragons really aren't all that common. So to have one flying around is...
At first level.
You're at first level, you are nobody. The first level, you can actually die from a splinter if you do it wrong. Don't run your hands on the banisters, folks. It's a great way to kill yourself. Now there is
a make a trap like that.
Well, you can always do stuff like that. You just give somebody a box of billiard balls and send them up the stairs. Somebody's going to die. But a blue dragon wandering around the sky, just generally scaring the hell out of everything within sight, and various fighting and screaming and running and screaming and so on. So, needless to say, this would give any caravan pause. And naturally, now that you've stopped, the game master's going to ask the question, what do you do?
Very important questions. Game master quiver, or toolbox as you were, includes that. The other one that my players have learned to fear is, okay.
Yes, those two letters have hung more than one person. Because, for one reason or another, some people do not understand the concept of in-game and above board. Now, with big groups, especially if you've got those same cronies floating around where they're chatting back and forth across the table, or there's somebody mentioned something that kind of adds into one of their old gags. So these three characters here are giggling like schoolgirls and nobody else can figure out why. But one way around determining whether you are in-game, if you're actually speaking as your character or speaking as a player, is either affect an accent. There's a number of different ways. It's like running around as a dwarf. I've always played a dwarf because I have the most fun being one, because most of our early years we're learning how to play the game, and being who we were, there was really a lot of beer involved. So if you're trying to roll dice and concentrate and play the game as a dwarf, you might as well have the beer there too.
Yep.
Now, as you can see, when you're starting to talk like that, all of a sudden you're one of the extras from The Hobbit.
Right.
So you've got dwarves running around here, there, everywhere, breaking things, throwing dishes, getting in fights with every bloody thing. Now, when you're talking like this, they know that you're talking as the player.
Right. The problem is when somebody doesn't do that and they use absolute statements. As a DM, and my players know this about me now, when you make an absolute statement, I say, okay, and I run with it. So getting back to the what do you do, now it's up to the players to determine what they're going to do with this situation. There's cultists invading this town. Are you going to go save it? Are you going to try and fight your way to this keep? Are you going to try and go around? Now, generally the impetus, the whole point is to get stuck in. Some people will work their way around the problem, and that's great. But a lot of times the whole point of being set up like this is to get stuck in and solve this problem that these poor people have. That's why you have alignments. A lot of our players are good aligned. And so ish.
We don't have any angels in the group.
No.
Well, one, maybe
cleric.
two. Yeah, it's Rithian really does do good work, and it's just, and even Casey playing Rithian puts up with a lot of stuff from us where it's you can hear, you can, like, I mean, you know, she's like, I don't think that was a real word. And yet he just actually say that, and considering some of us, sometimes things can get a little raw, and it's like we try to tone it down, but sometimes you just got to go with it, and there's no real way out of it.
Or going back. So as good characters, our faithful band of adventurers goes.
That's a good title.
Yeah. Goes into the town and starts fighting their way towards the keep, rescuing as many people as possible, with some various hijinks and failures going on, attracting attention, because all of this is done based on your skills, and you roll dice. And you can succeed and fail. You can critically succeed, like you just do something amazing and glorious and you do a backflip while doing it. Or you can critically fail.
Which means you fall flat on your face and shoot somebody behind you in the knee. And
or various permutations thereof.
Yes, it could be good, it could be bad, it could be really bad.
Really bad.
Really bad.
So they fight their way to the keep, and they rescue some people along the way. And one example of what Jareth, our wandering tank, kind of gets up to is, as they're trying to run to the keep before they get overrun by cultists, he stops to search dead kobolds. Now, kobolds are little lizard dog creatures that are generally filthy.
It's half dog, half rat, about 2 feet, 2 foot something tall. Big enough to be threatening with a small sword, a shield. They're smart enough to be able to communicate, fight as a group, so on. Kobolds are usually what you break in your first level characters with. They're pretty much the go-to villain.
Right. I mean, you need a horde of something that needs to be killed, you go with kobolds. Well, the problem with this is there are cultists and kobolds firing arrows and chasing them down, and he wants to search the dead bodies for something. He had a fixation with searching dead things. And so as the DM...
Or keeping them.
Yes, you'll find out about that later. I said, okay, and immediately, everybody else in the group is in the keep safely. He's out picking dead bodies on the battleground.
Will you get in here?
And I say, okay, and arrows start falling down around him and hitting him, such that he now has to run for his life, even more so than previously, and dive into the keep, or else he would die at first level.
At first play.
Yes.
First game, there you are.
Yeah. So they get into the keep, and now their job is to try and fend off the cultists, infiltrate the town again by various means, and save as many people as they can. So they go into an old tunnel. They fight through some rat swarms.
There's always a tunnel.
Always a tunnel.
Anytime it's a small town like this, to actually have an actual stone and mortar keep is something to be said. But of
deal.
course, anytime, anywhere, unless it's brand new, just been finished, and has a garrison living in it, is going to have some hidden passage somewhere that's got some unsightly crap living in it that you're going to have to fight, wade through, or avoid having it eat you or catch anything from it so you can get through to the other side. There may be booby traps, random random cave-ins. You never know. And it's just the big problems you can have is that whoever built the place first off might be some kind of practical joker where they start putting weird bends in it and whatnot. But in this case, it was pretty much a straight shot. You go in there, go down this ladder, go over there, and then it's a straight shot out that way to where this hidden gate is.
Now, this is our first series of misadventures, I guess you can say.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where every one of your characters, anything that they do, if it's something simple like you want to open a door quietly and take a peek inside, you don't really have to roll for anything like that unless it's something you're trying to do something very specific. In this particular case, the gate that we had to go through was old, rusty,
and
locked. Now, we had a key, of course. They actually had the key. Now, that's rare. But the thing is the key is in the same condition as the gate. So, our hapless key bearer, I honestly forget who was carrying the key.
Oh, it was Muriel. It was the rogue. We gave the key to the rogue because she had the highest dexterity and the most likely to actually open this gate and successfully. Well, she rolls a 1 to unlock the gate because of its busted nature.
The big die that is used most often is the 20-sider. You have the 20. Everybody loves the 20 at times. Nobody likes the 1 at times. Now, the shame is we see the 1 entirely too often. So it's just like, what happened? 1. Oh, okay.
And as a DM, this is great fun for me.
Oh yeah, because you notice the one person who's not actually there, quote unquote, he's observing from afar, is giggling behind his hand because he knows what's going to happen next, and we don't.
So the key breaks in the lock. It is it just horribly malfunctions. They can't open it, so now they have to try and force the door open.
Plan B.
Plan B.
The problem is now, between all of us, we're carrying enough blunt instruments, weapons of every size, shape, and description. We could probably just batter the door down. The problem is that the door, we need to do this quietly because this door opens into a gully outside in the woods. And there are patrols and small groups of villains running around. So the last thing they want to do is, okay, we're going to go into this gully after announcing to everyone on the planet that there's something in the gully.
Much less a secret passage directly into the key.
Yeah. So, naturally, big strong dwarf, stronger than anyone else in the party, is going to go over there and just pull the sucker off the hinges and call it good. At which point, he rolls the dice, and the dice laugh.
Now, he didn't critically fail, so he didn't strain anything, but he certainly didn't open the door.
I think it was a 4.
I think it was.
But it's big, great, big, strong dog. Here, laddie, hold this axe. It's like, hi.
Now, and
nothing happened.
Here's the thing. As a DM, you don't just let people keep re-rolling until they succeed. It isn't, you don't do it like that because then it's boring. You just sit there and re-roll, and it's not good. So generally when you fail, you don't get to make that roll again. Well, Ito, our elf wizard,
who is physically far taller but way more delicately built than the dwarf naturally, well, he comes walking over there and ping.
He shoves the dwarf out of the way. He's like, I've got this. grabs the door and lifts it, and immediately says something about half-barrel hinges.
Yeah, and I felt, as a player, I felt a sharp pain over my right eye. And I was just like, oh, he got me, didn't he? Yeah, and the dwarf's just sitting there like, give me that damn axe. Can we go now?
So now the elf wizard is like, ha ha!
Yes, it's funny. That's why the mages have those great big sleeves, so you can't see them when they're over there going,
laughing at you.
Yes.
So they wander out there, the whole retinue, and they encounter a patrol.
Villains.
Now they do it, and with surprise because they were able to get the door down relatively quietly, and a melee ensues.
And the dwarf almost drowns.
The dwarf almost drowns by tripping over his feet in this gully. And what else?
Well,
our wizard.
First off the bat is everybody. If a fight's going to ensue, everybody has to roll a 20 for the sake of initiative, so everybody knows who goes first.
Yes.
Now off we go. The dwarf. He's going to run out there, and even though the stream isn't very deep, there is a stream in the bottom of the gully. Even though the stream isn't very deep, he's going to charge out there and kind of sit himself centrally located between the good guys and the bad guys, so the bad guys have a focus, and the good guys have somewhere to hide behind him. Now, the problem is I think I got 2 steps out there, tripped over my own feet, and went face first in the stream. And then the fight ensued on top of the dwarf, because I'm wondering, there's hell breaking loose, there's things
swords
flying, this one, that one, all manner of screaming and running, and I'm trying to get up, but my beard has soaked full of water and it's holding my head under. It's just not right. It wasn't right.
Another example of a misadventure, to go along with the elf wizard dropping a sleep spell on a group of people. Now, the problem with this is sleep spell doesn't care friend or enemy, and, well, he puts his own people
area
to sleep.
Effect.
Yeah.
This is an area. If you are in the area, you are affected.
It's called AoE for short. And so this AoE spell goes off, and he puts his own people to sleep, specifically the sword-throwing fighter, and I think it was the druid. Anyway.
Yes, it was a very rousing charge. Ha ha!
Yeah. And so immediately after this big glorious moment of him opening the door that the dwarf couldn't, he immediately commits a snafu and just completely wrecks the battle plan even more.
But that's okay. We forgave him. It was all right.
Yeah, the players survived, and they get out there and they start doing stuff, and they end up going to a mill. Now, they need to save this mill because this mill is part of the town's livelihood. The problem is it is an ambush by the villains, and so they sneak up. They kind of do this stealthy thing where they look in and they find out, yes, there is somebody in there waiting for us. Because with the 4 Old Farts of Faerun, they are very experienced players, and so they're naturally suspicious of any situation I put
involving the game master. Yes, any situation involving the game master. Now, the idea being, okay, it seems to be that the mill is on fire, and we need to save the building because otherwise this town will wither on the vine. Now, once we get within certain distance of the place where you can take a look at it, you can tell that they have set fires, but they're set in such a way that it's just a lot of smoke, etc., but no real damage. It's just bait. So we come up with a cunning plan.
To assault the building in such a way that they're attacking from multiple angles, and it's a very solid plan. They're ready to go. But wait, there's more.
Yes.
Our sword-throwing fighter decides, very heroically, to go around to the backside of the mill and climb up the water wheel so that he can rain death down upon the enemies who are inside the mill.
stacked up, waiting.
Right. So they assault the mill, throw open the doors, craziness ensues, and
Big fight.
big fight.
Big fight.
Just
Everybody's doing their level best. We've got various doors trapped off, so they only have one exit out of the building, and they're coming out of that door one at a time, and we can take them as they come.
very smart, very planned out. It's very efficient. You minimize the number of people that can come at you, and you can maximize your damage.
Meanwhile,
And this is where the there's more comes in, the sword-throwing fighter has to climb said water wheel.
now in all the movies, anyone who is going to climb the water wheel or the portcullis, one or the other, they're going to have a gimmick. They're going to have some handy dagger, and they'll go wade around to the side of the wheel, and they will sink their dagger, thrust it into the wheel, and allow the spinning wheel to rotate and carry them hither, up into the air. Well, unfortunately, his roles for doing that did not really work out for him. So
He tries to get to the top of this thing. He fails twice. He succeeds to get up to the top of the water wheel, and now he has to jump from the water wheel to the roof of the building. And he slips and falls right back down. Now, this is what, 3 turns into the combat?
there is a roaring battle going on in the front of the house. The problem is in the back of the house, this one poor guy is getting his ass kicked by a water wheel. I mean, he's getting either run into the paddles, or he's getting dragged under the darn thing, or once he gets up there, he falls off.
Happens twice.
So by the time he finally gets up there, he
6
gets up
rounds
there.
in.
Ha ha! I'm up here. Ha ha ha!
One bad guy is left alive.
He comes across the roof, because the thing was, I didn't think about it at the time, but he's trying to get on the roof. Okay, he gets on the roof eventually. There are no skylights in this building. It is a solid wood roof building. I don't know what the hell he was going to come down through, but he is on the roof, and he manages, after all of this, to cross the roof and pick off the last guy with the sword. Thrown. Nails into the ground. Pow.
No, he threw a pot at him.
What is it, a pot?
It was a pot. He threw a pot. The man threw a pot, a cooking pot. And the enemy was down
I
to...
gave him credit.
The enemy was down to his last bit of health, and so it was like 1 or 2 hit points, and he did just enough damage to kill him with a pot. And so now...
I missed that. Sorry, folks, I missed that part.
So now he's like looking at the rest of the party like very sheepishly, because he has been absent this entire time. He's like, can you throw that pot back up to me? I'm going to stay here for a little while.
Yeah.
And that is actually where Ivor was left.
Yeah, he probably camps out up there now, because
I think
after
he lives
that
in
he
Greenwich.
moved. Yeah, he moved out. He had to move for the sake of employment. So his character is still up there. He's probably the neighborhood weird guy who lives on top of the mill. You never know what he's doing up there.
I think they might have built him a guardhouse. He protects
guards the mill. I'm the millwright. Okay, yeah, good for you. I'm sure you work on that water wheel. No, I don't go on that side of the building. I hate that thing. It stares at me. Although we do understand that they did put up a little plaque beside the water wheel. It is the memorial water wheel.
Well, he did come down. He did come down for one more little adventure a little bit later on, and so after the water wheel and various other little missions that they do, they get back to the keep, and the dragon decides to attack the keep.
Yes. Now, there are dozens of novels that deal with Dungeons and Dragons, various worlds, various characters, heroes, villains, anywhere in between. And one thing that they've always done is the way that they've always held on to the description of dragons. Dragons are nothing it's an awe-inspiring creature. You've got this, especially the older they get, the bigger they get. And, you've got this amazing critter that you're not really ever going to see, but maybe once or twice in your life, if you're lucky. And, they're magical creatures. They can do this, they can do that. But one of the big things is, one, just their presence, their aura. They radiate fear. It's just all they got to do is fly near people, and they can just their presence can automatically frighten people, cause panic. Another thing is that they're literally like fighting a granite wall. You run up there, I've got my special little sword that does this and does that and glows in the dark, and I can stab people around corners. And you run over there, ha ha, bing bing. Oh. Because it's just going to be like, because they're just so tough.
And massive.
Yeah, yes, an enormous creature. Now, here you are in this little spitball special keep that's got one gate in and a couple of towers and a perimeter wall and a whole bunch of farmers that barely know which end of the spear to use. And now this thing is flying around. Now what?
Now what is they have to try and fend it off, which it's set up to where you don't actually have to kill the dragon. You just have to, annoy it enough that it wanders away. It kind of really doesn't want to be there, and so you annoy it enough, it'll go away. The problem is annoying it enough. Now, they eventually do it, but in the meantime, our very special tank wants to jump off the keep. Now,
I believe his initial thought was, to leap right off of this wall onto that bunch of kobolds down there, and I'll fight them, and I'll do this, and I'll do that.
He wanted to do something very heroic, which we appreciate, but the problem is, he would be jumping off several...
it's a good 30 or 40 foot drop onto enemy soldiers. It's like,
with no backup.
This is really not I'm not jumping off that wall. That's a long way for you. That's a longer way for a dwarf.
Now, at this point, because he's new, and I don't want to ruin his experience, I'm trying to coach him, not baby him so much as corral his enthusiasm and explain to him the consequences of his actions. Now, eventually, this charity stops from me, but he's new. I want him to have a good time so that he will grow in his experience and grow as a player. And I explained to him the ramifications of his actions. This is just one time in the next several times that I save him from himself as the DM and go, "Are you sure?" That eventually turns into, "Okay," which is much worse. So I save him from that, and he's like, okay, well, he stays with the group and he runs around. Eventually they drive off the dragon, and this has been the better part of 3 weeks so far, because with a big group like this, we've actually kind of split it into two and done some things. And so
there were some procedural variations in the way the group was set up
before we ended up with the 10-man group. But at the end of the third night, they level up to level 2, which is important because it ties into the next story where, because there's two groups, you have one group who's running around kind of doing stuff in parallel. They're doing the same things but with slightly different results. So one group does this final challenge. The cultists are about to leave. They've taken everything they wanted to take, and everybody survived. But now they're holding somebody hostage, and the main bad guy for this little misadventure wants to have a fight. He wants to challenge somebody to a duel. So in the first group, where the sword-throwing fighter is kind of witness to what's going on beforehand, he sees one character go in and fight this main bad guy. Now this character is a shape-shifting druid into a direwolf, and through a miraculous series of rolls, this character is able to take down the bad guy. This isn't supposed to happen. It's just it was good rolls on the part of the character and bad rolls on my part as the DM that facilitated this character winning. And so, it's like, now this sword-throwing fighter is like, sweet, I'm going to take this guy out. I got this. He thinks he can handle business and just, save the day, kind of like this other character, this druid. And so he does this special thing where he rolls up. It's called dual classing, or multi-classing, where he is both a fighter and a mage, which allows him to do certain special
Amazing things.
Amazing things.
But on the other hand on the other side of the coin, jack of all trades, master of none.
Correct. So he goes into this fight. He is,
pumped.
Headstrong and cocksure.
I've got this. Does the heroic leap off of this and rolls out there, talks smack to the guy. Now, just envision, if you will,
a
half dragon, which is actually very big. Humanoid. I would say probably 7 foot, 400 pounds. Now,
with a sword about as big as he is.
Yeah, most of them are shapeshifters to one point or another. They either have their true form, or they may wrap themselves up so they look like a human or an elf or something to that effect. It's just as far as their physical features. Now, you've got this 7-foot reptilian standing there with the armor to match, and his whole goon squad, and on top of that, hostages. Because the problem that he threw at us is, you come out here and fight me, or I'm going to start offing these hostages one after the other.
But he's an honorable sort, so he's willing to, you win or lose, you get the hostages, just nobody interferes, or the hostages die.
Lumpy air.
If you don't go fight him, he kills the hostages. Excuse me, I need to get a drink of water.
Go.
Anyway, continue.
We can pause for a moment while the game master runs out of the room before he drops dead. Anyway, he charges out there and is immediately... Let's see if I can find the proper word. Crushed?
Well, and the problem is you have to roll initiative before any combat to see who goes in what order, who goes first. The problem he ran into is this guy rolled much higher than him. And, so the half-dragon gets to go before he does. Now, in his idea of doing the mage fighter thing, he was going to use a spell, which is a reaction spell called Shield. Shield allows you to improve your armor class. Armor class is what you have to roll higher than to actually hit something. It goes the same way for the player characters as the DM. If I, as the villain, want to hurt the players with like a bow or a sword, I have to roll high enough to beat their armor class and injure them. Well, that's all well and good.
Well.
The problem is that spell doesn't work if you get critically hit. Now, this happens. So he's all out there, very heroic, very like, I'm going to get this guy, I got this, I have this battle plan, and this half-dragon comes
Wham!
Wham! All you see is just smoke and boots. I mean, there is nothing left. I mean, he just yeah, like the guy's running up at the half-dragon swings, and all you see is just boots keep running.
4!
and so I felt bad for the player because he was so pumped about this thing, but at the same time as the DM I'm laughing because he'd been telling me how he was so pumped and he was talking so much crap about how he was going to get this guy. I was like, okay, I hope he wins because I'm a nice DM. You can ask him.
Oh yeah, the last thing you want is a jerk.
I'm pretty lenient. I'm not out to just annihilate the party, but at the same time, I got to make it a challenge. So I roll this die, and it comes up to 20, and I critically hit him, which means double damage.
Smash!
And so there is nothing left of this guy, and he is just completely crestfallen.
Yeah. The problem with whatever hit points you generate, if your opponent doubles your hit points and damage. Like if you have a total of 20 hit points, and he does 40 points of damage, where he bottoms you out to the other end. Basically, it's a one shot. He kills you on the spot. And
well, in this case, it wasn't that bad. He just did like a few points more than his total health. I mean, he dropped him from max health to 0 in one go, and so he is just left. He's just there dying on the ground. But the dragon, being the honorable sort, lets the hostages go. The cultists leave. And he eventually gets healed up, and so that's where we leave.
Once we drag him out of the hole in the ground.
Right. Once you pick up the pieces, they heal him up, and he's good to go. And he could have kept going, except he had to move. And so that's just an example of kind of the misadventures and the ups and downs of D&D.
That was probably about the first. Well, that was pretty much the whole story arc until we got to level 3. So that's from getting there to that fight.
Yeah.
And it pretty much covered it all. It's like those are all of the things that can happen. Everything that can happen will happen.
Yeah.
Things will go wrong. The dice will start to hate you. People will actually start making references to the dice gods, because I think there is actually some minor Indian deity, not feather, that is like probably brother-in-law to Ganesh, that is in charge of dice. And whenever you say the wrong thing, or it's a day with an R in it, the dice are going to laugh at you, and they're not going to do what you need them to do.
But at the same time, things can go really right. And so we'll just leave you at that, but wait, there's more. And you'll get to hear about that in the next episode. Y'all have a good night.
Ciao.